Are you really wasting time and money on your supports? It all comes down to being productive and efficient. In this video, I'll explain the important difference between a functional and a decorative support. In the end, I'll show you as well how to make the basic framework of this design. I'm Thomas de Bruyne, award-winning author and lead instructor from EMC International. Make sure to like this video. Let's go into it. Often floor designers refer to armatures or even carcass in Russia. But within EMC, we break it down even further into two parts. We have structures, we have constructions. There's a huge difference. And why do we do this? Because you have to know before you start what kind of mechanics you're going to use, what kind of techniques you're going to use. Because you remember, we were talking about techniques, use the most suitable techniques. Well, if we go to structures, and that's one part, that's the more the functional part, is like the focus is everything has to be functional. So actually we don't see the aesthetics on it. If you go to the decorative part and it has to be beautiful, then you have to choose your elements, you have to choose your mechanics, your techniques, it has to be beautiful. So there's a huge difference between the two. Time-wise, structure goes quick, construction takes really long time. Mechanic-wise, you can use cheap mechanics, but really strong because they have to be supportive. Decorative, you go more for like a more beautiful, not really supportive, but it has to be beautiful. So before you start, make that decision very clear by picking the right elements to really make your arrangement. So what we did here is we made some constructions, but also we made some structures. So if you go to construction, you have to take in consideration how much time do I have, because it takes a lot of time, because you know what, you have to really wire in a very beautiful refined way, so that takes time. Also your mechanics, your wire has to be beautiful because people will see it. It's part of the aesthetics. If you go to structure, well, you're going to wire really quickly, although it has to be good. Your technique always has to be perfect. So in this way, you can use more like binding wire of oasis. You use more like quick wire to do it. Or your technique, you just do a quick wire technique. What you can't do with a construction. I brought some mechanics here. This one, like, it's beautiful. It's an aluminum wire. It's a little bit more expensive, but it's so beautiful, so you can show it to the people. This wire is like, well, quite cheap. Although it's strong, but it's not attention to let it show the people. It's not part of the aesthetics. Well, actually, we made an example for you to show it how it works. So in this case, what we did, we made it. It's a hand-tied bouquet, but we needed actually to have a structure. So the structure in here, what happens here, you don't see it anymore, right? But here it holds everything together. It holds actually the branches on the place where we want. And in this case, we just made a bouquet held by the branches. Held by, I just mean not by the branches, but you think it's held by the branches, but it's not. It's held by the structure. So this is the difference between a structure and construction, because a structure holds it functionally together. So now, as promised, I'm going to show you some basics to create the framework. Let us take this one here. We can do so many things with it. Well, if we just go for that example, how did we do it? Well, we're going to make a structure and we're going to bend it in a certain way that we can make our branches, or we can add some beer grass, or we can add some botanicals. If we just repeat on every wire, it has a certain dynamic of repetition. You have to make your framework according to the botanicals. Some botanicals are really strong or very hard, some botanicals are very soft. For instance, we have a botanical, look how soft it is. So what we can really easily insert, pierce this in an element. If we take this branch, you see it's tough, it's really hard. You cannot pierce it because it's too hard. So you have to adapt yourself mechanically wise to your botanicals. In this case, it's easy. So what we can do, if we just make, for instance, this one here, we make a structure and we're going to pierce everything on the structure. If you do it like this, we can create something like this. This is actually something else, but you see the flowers are actually in the middle. So we have to think about another idea. If we want to have or branches in the middle of the bouquet, we need another technique. And this is actually, we just call it the fork technique. So we're gonna make a fork and we're gonna pierce the fork into the material. You can ask yourself, why do you do like two forks or two insertions? If you pierce it on 2 times, you stable it. And that's the difference. If you do it only 1, it will be always unstable. So in this case, here we used that kind of technique. We made a frame, exactly the same frame. We used like 30 of those wires. Gonna place them all in the same direction. And then this next part is we're gonna pierce them on our forks. You can ask yourself, how did I do this? Well, you take 2 wires, you just tape them, and then you just make them like a fork. That easy. So now we just explained when your botanicals are very soft. But imagine you have to work with bamboo, or you imagine you have to work with like branches like this. They're so tough, they're so hard, so you cannot pierce them. So that's why we have another kind of technique. So once again, you take your 2 wires, and then you're gonna open it, and you're gonna bind the branch together, like this. And you can repeat it even several times. So you can do the next one, and next one. You can even put 3 or 4 like stole branches. In the end, we create a kind of structure like this. In here, it is exactly the same. We have the structure. You don't see it afterwards because we're gonna place it full of flowers. But on the outside, the flowers will really come out really beautifully. And then you create a beautiful kind of design. Learn from your botanicals. If your botanicals are, actually they are telling you just to be used in a certain way. Let us take like the equisetum, snake grass. Well, okay, what we can do, they're also like, they are hollow. So what we can do, if we take that design, we just can pierce them on. And that's it. So in this case, you can make a really like huge, with a huge and big visual impact only by using a structure and just placing all the equisetum. That is so simple. It's only to know how you combine the elements, how do you interact with your structures, constructions, and with your botanicals. So sometimes you see that huge bouquets, that really like bouquets like 1 meter, 2 meter. Actually, it's the same. It's just made by a structure. We need a kind of a support to put it. Like this one here, if we just use the same and we just pierce them on, look what kind of size your bouquet you're able to make. So in this is exactly the same. You make your flowers here and let's radiate it out. Well, I hope that you have learned something and start playing with the idea of structures and constructions. Thank you. Thank you for watching, and make sure you follow us on Instagram for more floral inspiration.